Hello. Hi, everybody. You might have just picked up, I had a few internet issues just now, so we're in and ready to go. Welcome to this webinar. What we're going to do today is just show you some of the improvements that we've made in We, being the Royal We. I brought Ming along because Ming's the chap who's done most of the work on this. And we're going to show you exactly what we've done from the text editing in PyReports, but there's also a couple of other areas that we've introduced that formatting to as well. I'm going to take you through that today. Now, hopefully you can all see my screen, and I'll keep the chat window open. So we've got chat and questions on the go to webinar. I've got a question in there. Greg can't hear the audio or anything. Could anyone else, I know this is a strange question, but just confirm as a delegate that you can hear what we're saying? Oh, just gone in. All right, Kevin can hear. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to take you through that. But first of all, I think most people are aware of who I am. You've probably come across me at some point, but I'm Ken Miller, CTO here at Pan Intelligence, and I'm going to sort of run this sort of demo for you. Ming, do you want to give yourself a quick introduction, let everyone know who you are?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I mean, you wouldn't be able to see my camera. Well, you wouldn't be able to see me because this machine doesn't have a camera. But yeah, I'm sort of like a technical architect in Pan Intelligence, and I've been here for so long already, like pretty much since the very beginning, the company founded. So yeah, I was doing most of the work related to the text editing part on PyReport. So yeah, if later on you have questions and so on, feel free to sort of like put that on the chat, and we'll try to sort of like give you an answer. Okay.
Fantastic, thanks, Ming. So if you haven't guessed it, Ming's here. Really, if anything goes, if anything goes wrong from that point of view, I'm just checking. There's a couple of questions. Yeah, so we are recording this webinar as well. So if anyone's not been able to attend, it will go out to the delegate list, and including yourselves who've joined the conference, so you'll be able to share the video recording should you wish to after the event. Obviously, like anything else, if you've got further questions beyond the webinar, then just reach out to ourselves or to your account manager, and they'll be able to take you through everything that we've got. But most of what we're going to do is going to be talking really about PyReports. Now, there's a really quick and easy way to know that if you've got PyReport, which is on your dashboard, you would either have this clock symbol or not have this clock symbol. Also, everything that I'm about to do in this demo is kind of the same setup and config that we have on our TryPy site. We've not upgraded the version of that just yet. That'll happen next week, but you can go in at any time and have a play with it, the sorts of stuff that we're going to show you today. I'm going to click on the little clock, and that will take me into the PyReport module within here. And this works, for those of you who haven't seen it before, you've got the reports that you define here. You've got the schedules and who you're going to schedule those items out to. And then you've got a monitoring session so that you can actually see which of those events have been requested, when they're likely to run, etc. But really today we're going to concentrate on the configuration side of this. And for the webinar today, I've just put up a couple of reports. So I'm going to open up this financial report here. And what you'll see is it looks very similar to the sorts of ways that you've investigated reports before. So I can click on the page, click page to page down here, and go and have a look at any of those elements that sit within there. And just as previously, if I want to make a change, I can add a cell on here. Most of what you're going to be doing is adding chart elements within here. So click on there, and in that case, I can bring in the top 10 creditors, do all the things that I've always been able to do, so I can hit the back buttons and reverse that out. And whilst I'm doing this, I can then test it out as a HTML, PDF, Word, or PowerPoint. I'm actually going to be in this presentation kicking everything out to the preview, the HTML, because that's just the fastest way to do this, so that we're not sitting around for a long time waiting for things to happen. So everything within there hopefully feels kind of familiar to a lot of you guys. But the biggest change really has been the change both to this panel, and if I click into some text here, you'll now see this panel appear here. So we sort of nicknamed this word like text editing. So we've kind of given ourselves this new bar that sits at the top, and it just allows us to do a couple of things really quickly within here. So previously you could change the font and an element within a text cell, but only for the whole text cell. So if I wanted to have something justified differently or in a different place, I would have historically had to go and split that cell up, put another bit of text in there and decide exactly how to do that. And I would have actually been using components that appeared on this right hand side. Whereas now I don't need to do this anymore. So if I just reverse that element off here, I can really quickly now start to decide, okay, I've got board written here. I want that to be bold. Maybe I want it to be underlined. Maybe I want it to be italic, so I can set that up however I want. I can also then go to the font size for this and say, you know, let's make bold a little smaller. I can also then pick that font out and say, I'm going to go into here and I'm going to choose a different font. And you're going to see in a couple of seconds when Ming takes you through one of the other screens, we've actually now, rather than you having to pick from a small list of fonts, we've included a whole suite of fonts that work within the web browser that you can go and pick from. So, you know, I can go ZZ Cool on there, or I can have a monospace or a sans serif, all of these sorts of things. Now, different fonts will support different levels of bold, italic, etc. It's actually the different font that allows you to do various things. But you know, I can now quickly start to go in here and say, let's make this look like we've scribbled this on with a permanent marker. So I've got the font size there. I've got the font type. I can also now go and say, well, I'm going to change the font color to be a particular font. And I can do that for a whole word, or I could do that for part of a word. So if for any reason I wanted to go and highlight a tiny piece of a word, I can absolutely do that. And I can also go and set the background color for one of these fonts as well. So, you know, I could put that on a green background as well, should I wish to. And, you know, obviously I've created something incredibly ugly there, but you can go to town and, you know, do pretty much whatever you want within here. And you can do that literally anywhere within a report. So for example, here, I'm using some of the magic variables, so the shift variables, to say what the current year, previous year, and current period is. And I've been able to style that out for us completely. Now, Ming, what I was going to do is I was going to throw to you now and go to the back end. And I just wonder whether it's worth you explaining at this point the changes that have been made to the dashboard configuration. So if I come to the settings page.
So we have now made some changes in the settings section, because previously we have everything over here about variables and some configurations. So now variables, they are separated in a particular area which contains lots of different variable types and so on. So it's just exactly the same as before, while it's just now in a separate tab because we've got too many things over here. And the only additional thing that we added is actually this list of fonts that we have on the right hand side. So by default, we ship a whole list of fonts over here. Some of them, they are working nicely with like italic and so on. Some of them, they don't actually have italic and stuff. As you can tell, these fonts, they are all coming from the Google API. We didn't implement these fonts. They are all coming from Google API. If a particular font supports bold, italic, and so on, then basically bold and italic would work. If the font doesn't support bold and italic, then basically by clicking bold or italic on a particular font, it doesn't actually make any change. So let's just show you how you can actually add a font to this section. So if you hit this add button, then basically something is added to the end. Obviously, the list is quite long over here, so you sort of need to scroll down to the end to find that particular new item to be added. And the way to add the font, as you can tell, we have a URL over there for the font. So let's just find a font to add over here. So if you open a new tab and then just Google for Google Fonts, like the first option over here, yeah. And then basically you can just jump onto Google Fonts. Yeah, there are other font libraries and so on that you can use, but this is one of the most convenient ones that we can pick up. So let's say you want this Estonia one, for example. Yep. So let's click on that, and then yeah, there is an option over there called select this font. I think you need to. Oh, you have already clicked on that, right, Ken? Did you? Yeah. So if you have already.
It's where sometimes they put the URL in a strange place, don't they? Even on this.
Yeah, it's on the right hand side. So after you select that, basically there's an option for you to download or whatever. So no, not this one. So if you untick the unselect the if you click on remove this style, yeah, and then click it again. Okay, and then on the right top, you've got this 3 squares and a plus, yeah. And then over here you sort of need to select the URL. So you start from the HTTP part to swap, yeah, copy that. And this is the URL that we use for adding a font. If you add a font over here, it will tell you there are certain things that you need to put into the boxes. So the first box over here is sort of like the name that you like the font to be called. So it will call that Estonia or wherever you like. And then the second item is basically the font family that we actually apply. So the font family, if you go back to not over here, go back to the other browser tab, is actually supplied on the right bottom section. Yeah. So if you select that, yeah, and copy and put that into there, then yeah, if you you need that single quote or double quote, it will automatically correct that for you if you get it wrong. So now you have the preview over there as well. It shows you that this particular font has already been added. So after we save it, then basically you can start using this font in the report.
So perfect. If I jump back to that report now, I can take that, I can add into here. So let's make it nice and big, but let's go on to the font itself, and I should have Ming's font in here somewhere. Can I enter it?
I think it will be the last item that is a custom one. Yeah. So the fifth one from the bottom.
Okay. So yeah, Ming's great font there. Let me actually highlight a font and select it. All be worthwhile when I get there. So there you go. We've got that font in there, and that will follow through, won't it, Ming? So when I go through and produce the report now, that will appear in the report when this comes up in a couple of seconds with that new font in there. The beauty of waiting for reports to appear. So we've now got that new font in our lovely report here.
So
Ming, is it talking about
I think there are a few other things that we would like to mention related to fonts and so on. Yeah. So if you go back to the configuration side, yeah. So we made one change, which is basically allowing fonts to be used globally. So wherever you define over here, these are the fonts that you can use in the whole system. It is not completely tied to a particular theme anymore. So previously, yeah, if you go to the themes tab, if you open a particular theme, previously we had some font configuration over here, which was only restricted to one particular theme to use these fonts. And you don't have the option of basically allowing selection and those kind of things. So you sort of need to import a font over here, and then you sort of need to remember the font family so that you can add that to a CSS style on the first tab over here, for example. So so in here, Ken, if you go to the first tab, the style tab. Yeah, so the style tab, as you can tell, we've got red hat text, and then it's got sans serif as well. So sans serif, for example, is basically like a fallback implementation, which means if the first font is not available, it's going to fall back to sans serif, which is a browser default supported font. Yeah, so we can now do it this way as well. Because it's yeah, you need to sort of like copy this part instead. So now that font becomes available globally. You don't actually you don't actually need to sort of like add that to a theme, which then means every single font that we define in a theme is no longer relevant. It's deprecated, but we still have it there because with some existing configuration with all of these fonts set up over here, we don't want to mess them up. So they are still here, but they are not recommended to be used. You just define them globally, and then you can just use them everywhere without worrying about having a particular font with particular within a particular theme, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, it just clears it up, doesn't it, Ming? So essentially now it's one less step that we need to create when we create themes. And also because we're shipping about 60 fonts now, aren't we? And we can add that to the list if people find fonts that they quite like us to ship in there. Then we can start, as long as they're open source, we can start to add those into the font window here. But you'll see we've added quite a few sort of stranger looking fonts. And one of those examples is we've had requests for quite a while for people to be able to put barcodes onto reports. So one of the fonts that we've actually shipped within here is an example of a barcode. Now, it might not be the font style that you need from a barcoding point of view, but you'd be able to add it. So for example, here in this report, I've created this section within here. And if I turned it back to just a normal font, you'll see it's a number within there. But by converting that into the barcode, that will allow us to produce almost like a barcode reading item, so someone could then go and scan this report or element. Now I've put it on the front page, but you could put that anywhere within the chart or within the report at that point of view. And when I save that and just go to produce that, what you'll see is that starts to create us a report with a barcode in there. So if you had anything that needed scanning or reading or electronically, then you can go ahead and do that. Now, anyone out there who's using system fonts or things like that to create those barcodes, you should be able to find an equivalent of that to go and do that. And exactly as we've just done to add that font into the system, you could do the same thing to add another font that you wanted to bring into there. So nice sort of addition to something that we've been wanting to do for a little while within there. Now, one of the other things that's probably worth mentioning within here as well is something that was a little difficult to do previously in dashboards was get everything consistent. So if I had headers on my report, so each of these pages effectively starts with a header here, and I'd gone and changed the format of one of these headers. So, you know, maybe I've gone into, just for the sake of it, let's pick some nice gaudy fonts in here and go and say that that's going to be a bright red element like that. I would then have to remember and go and apply that to the next header on the page. Whereas actually what you can do is you can select any text within here and you can do this sort of sample text button. And what that does is now when I go to another chart type here, I'm just going to sample it as well, just so I can set it back. You then sort of start to build up this list of formats that you've applied. Now this is per session. So if you logged out the dashboard and came back in, you wouldn't have that list within there. But really quickly within a report, I can now sort of say, well, actually, I'm going to do that for every page on the dashboard. So rather than having to go and keep clicking and remembering exactly where I was and what I was doing, I can come in here and effectively paint those styles over the top of the dashboard. just to make life a little bit easier again. So nice and simply, I can start to turn my report to look like this really quickly. Now, this isn't the only place that we've implemented this, and we'll come back to a few more of these styles in a second. But to keep this consistent, there's a couple of other places that we actually manipulate text, and we've gone and made sure that we do the same thing in those other places as well. So a really common place, and something that people are using more and more of these days, are our card chart types. And they've been a little complicated to set up, but we've actually taken that same ethos over here. So I'm going to take that card chart type, which is called invoice value this financial year, and I'm just going to go back into the dashboard now, and I'm going to drop it onto a page here to edit it. So go into my chart window here, select that out and drop that in there. And when I now go in and edit this card chart type, you'll see that historically what you've tended to have to do is create, multiple elements in here. And the reason really is because we want to be able to change and control the fonts. Whereas now what we can actually do is we can do this all in one cell. So, maybe I want the invoice total line just to be exactly where I want it to be. And I don't want to have to create multiple elements within here. So I'd go in and add this text in here and just remove the cells that I now no longer need. So with one cell, it's sort of already, you'll see it starts to make this a little bit easier to lay out. Now, one thing to notice, if I select a bit of text, so I could just go and bold invoice, and we'd see invoice appear in bold there. If I try and do the same for a variable, so maybe, I've decided I'm going to apply it to part of this variable, actually the system's smart enough to go and do that for the entire part of that variable. So if I change that variable to a blue, it will do it over that entire variable. If I bold it, it will do it for the entire variable. And also, if I go and change the font size, so let's start up that to sort of a 36 or a 48 there, it will do it for the entire variable. And that's if it's a user selected variable, so the double squiggly brackets, or if it's a double square bracket, it will apply that formatting over the entire thing. But I can nice and quickly now start to make the bits in that card chart type stand out without having to revert to HTML. Everything that you've done historically with HTML will continue working as well. So for example, this is a little example where we've done things using HTML, using an icon to make sure that we get that male employee icon, and that will absolutely continue to work as before. But now I've made that change to that element. If I come back in and request that report again, what you'll see is this will spin up. I'm just going to close some of these tabs because I'll get confused, because I am very easily confused when I've got too many tabs open. I'll be able to see, that change to that card chart type within there. So you can start to make these things look an awful lot better from that point of view as well. So a couple of other things that you can do really nicely is if I just go to this financial details 3 tab on here, we put a couple of things in here. So I'll save the animated GIF for the highlight at the end. But essentially, we have a couple of list items within here as well. So if I go to financial details 2, add a new page on here, I'm just going to do exactly what I've just done before. So I'm going to create a little page at the top of here, and I'm going to write some text, and I'm going to say, hi Ming, this is my list. Can you implement these things, please? And then within here, I'm going to do make lists. If I type properly, and I want to embed an image as well. And I want to embed an image nice and simply without having to go and create a card chart type for it or anything like that. So the first piece is being able to create lists. So I can toggle through the various examples. So I can go to bullets, and if I start to type in, just like in Word or anything else, it will know that this is a particular list. So that might be another item that we want within there. and I can hit return twice and get out of the list, or delete back and go back into the list. So it works pretty much the same as you'd expect from a Word point of view. I can also highlight that list again and change it into a number list. So in this case, it will follow 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. as it builds that down. Or I can select that item and I can click this little button and that will remove that list for me. So it will go back to not being a list at all. So I can start to insert lists and elements and bullets in there again without having to revert to HTML. So that was a really common thing that people were doing and having to use a HTML element for it. Another thing that was a real pain and people had to do HTML, and in fact most people sort of reverted to creating a card chart type and then embedding the card chart type with an image in it, is we can actually now go straight to embedding an image. So I'm going to go and drop an image into here, and actually I've got a little site that we love using for images these days, and this is a bit of a nod to Ming, because Ming is obsessed. If you ever ask Ming to show you an example of an image, he will send you an image of a cat typing frantically. So I'm going to find cat typing in here as an image. So go and find that. And we find a nice image there of a cat typing away frantically within there. So actually, let's go back to that. Why is it not letting me click on there? This is where Imager is going to let me down. All worked beautifully yesterday. And since it's not working, I'm just going to go back to one I created earlier and just pinch its image. So if I click into there and click the image, I can see the actual URL I need from the GIF point of view. So I'm going to use that. So click into my cell, click on the image, give it an image URL, click insert image, and I've now got the image in there, and I can carry on doing whatever I want to do with this image. So I can resize it, make it any shape, and type on here, you know, here is a cat Ming. I can now give that a save, come back up to here, and we'll preview this. So we'll generate this as a HTML, and while that's previewing, we'll also generate as a PDF. Now the interesting thing is you can't have moving images in a PDF, but Pi copes with that. So if we look first of all at the HTML image, we'll see there's the cat typing frantically. But in a couple of seconds, when the PDF generates in there, what we'll see is we'll get exactly the same PDF, but just with a static image. So it will still cope with it, but it will show the cat as we expect it to be. So 1 second while this all opens up. And if I just minimize out here so we can see the report, you know, looking like a report now with all the different elements within here. And finally at the end there, there's our cat in mid type because it's frozen the image for us. So really nice, simple ways of sort of going in and creating any images or any other elements within there. The final thing I'm going to do in here is I'm going to create a link. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a link back to our documentation site. So I'm going to go to Pan Intelligence. So go into panintelligence.com, go to Learn Pi and our Pi documentation site, which is now always kept up to date by the amazing documentation team. So I'm going to go into here and I'm going to search for something that people like a lot, which is magic variables, and search for that, and it will take me to an element, and I'm just going to steal the link from there, and I'm going to close this down to make sure that everyone sees exactly what it's about to do. So on my financial report 3, I'm going to say, if you want to know more about magic variables, then click here, and then I'm going to add using the little link. So I'm going to call it magic variables, and I'm going to post in the link, insert that link, and it will now create a little link, and I could click it from there. But actually, let's go and see what that looks like when we preview it, and it will work in exactly the same way, regardless of whether it's PDF, Word, Excel, or as a PowerPoint. But if I go down to the bottom page on here, I've now got a little link there. I can click on that, and that'll jump me straight out to the Magic Variables piece of information. So all of those variables that I'm using at the top of the report, I can find out exactly how they're going. So you can include sort of links or any other little bits and pieces that you might want to include in your reports by clicking on the link button. And that's the run of the buttons within here. What's also worth pointing out is this panel on the right hand side is still here, still allows you to control things like portrait versus landscape, still allows you to go in and create the page numbers, the page footers, and insert images in the way that you've got, and anything that you've created. This panel not only keeps that there, but it also maintains any legacy elements that you've got. And even if you go to the advanced options here, we've kind of hidden these buttons away, but you can still go and do things that we don't yet have buttons up there for. So things like setting the background color of a particular cell, particular element, particular page, you can go ahead and do that using the advanced configuration. But we've kind of hidden that away a little bit so that it's not sort of confusing users in terms of having a couple of places to go and do things, just one nice simple place. But essentially, if I want to do anything like increase the padding and change the padding on the page level here, I can do that and just sort of neaten things up around logos and all that sort of stuff. So that's the panel as it appears, and that's what we can now do with this. Hopefully it makes building those reports an awful lot simpler from that point of view. But what we can also do is there's one final place that we've implemented this panel as well, and it's on the schedule screen. And this is when I go and create a schedule within here. So anywhere that we've got text boxes like this, we've just implemented exactly the same panel. And there's no surprises now in terms of exactly how it works. I can come into here, or I can put my list items on here. I can create my links. I can do all those sorts of things. You'll notice there's no image button on this panel here because we're not letting you insert images within here. That's all to do with the report itself. But everything else you can go ahead and do within there and create that and do exactly what you're doing with the schedule, all the way down to being able to copy and use the different elements. So if I want to go and apply some formatting that I used in a report, I can do that in exactly the same way. So I can just go and sample it in a report, use it here, use it there, use it in the card chart type, literally everything, anywhere I want to do that. So that's in sort of hopefully a fair bit of detail exactly what we've done from the chart types in here. It's probably worth at this point as well sort of spelling out a couple of things that are coming up soon. So this is not the end of the word-like editing from a Pan Intelligence point of view. It is merely the beginning. And magically I've not done what Boris Johnson's done and lost his notes. So I've got my notes here. So coming up through 2022, you're going to start to see things like being able to drag and drop images onto the report directly. So at the moment, it's still a case of creating a cell, clicking into it, and then providing the link to an external web address. Coming soon will be the ability to just drag an image into there, and it will tag it and upload it to the server so that it's ready to go. Within card chart types, a couple of things that we've been wanting to do for a while, and we now have removed the blocker from. So things that we can now start to look at are being able to provide context sensitive coloring in here. At the moment, you still need to do that through a HTML tag. So when the value is greater than X, then make it green. When it's less than Y, make it red, etc. So we'll be introducing the ability to do that directly within the card chart type, as well as being able to change the background of the card chart type based on those context values as well. Another thing that we want to introduce into here is the final piece then that really people use HTML for in card chart types, will be the ability to just bring in a standard icon set. So again, being able to put up, down arrows without having to create a HTML object to do that. Just to be clear, both of those things you can do at the moment with HTML, but obviously we're wanting to make it really, really simple for the end user to go and do those pieces. One limitation we have at the moment in a report, and again, something that we will resolve in due course, is the ability to color the entire page of an element. So I can go around and I can pick all of these elements and individually go and color them, but I can't color the actual white. So if I wanted a really black and white text and create like that sort of glossy formatted report, then that's something that I can't quite do yet, but that's coming soon, as well as things like being able to put images behind text and those sorts of things. And then finally, the other main piece that we're looking to roll out in 2022, obviously roadmap depending, is the ability for each time you run this, for every user that you select within here, it would run it in their own image and it would pick up the theme that's assigned to that individual user. So if I had a user here who had a particular theme applied, it would pick that up, because you probably know at the moment the theme itself uses the variable and uses the overall Pi theme to apply to the report. So all the reports currently go out in the same format. So that again is the sort of the highlight items that are coming up in the coming year, as well as anything else that you guys raise and want us to consider from the roadmap point of view. And I've missed the one that you told me not to miss, Ming, on there, which is the other big element, is being able to generate a page within a report from a category. So at the moment, if I go, yeah, this is perfect, this is just what I want in a report, we will have pretty soon the ability within your report just to click into here and generate a page from a category. So rather than having to go and sort of split those cells up and do what we have to do at the moment and keep sort of going backwards and forwards and working what's in there, it will just be able to generate that report page directly from a category. Ming, I know I've rushed through all of those sorts of things. Is there anything that you think I've missed from a coming up point of view, or anything that's in there? And also, if any of you've got any questions, if you ask those questions in the question panel, we'll come to that.
I think you have covered pretty much what we have been gathering so far related to the coming up and those kind of things.
Fantastic. So I've got one question in, which is, I'll let you answer, because I've been talking so much, Ming. So I'll let you answer this question. So are the colours in the report taken from the theme? And I'm assuming they mean the sort of colours of the charts and elements within there. I mean, do they come from the theme? If so, it's probably worth just giving a bit of explanation about the theme that's used and where they come from.
Yeah, cool. Right. So if you go back to the report editing side, right? So in terms of colors in the charts, they are just coming from the theme that you pick related to that. Obviously, there is only one theme that we use at the moment related to a report. So so that's coming from this particular theme called PiBerry. So that's to do with the colors on the charts. In terms of the colors that we have for text editing. So if you don't mind going back to report editing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so for example, let's select some text.
Oops, I'm gonna drag mine down a little bit there.
Yeah.
So I won't mess my layout up, didn't I? So 1 second, I'll just go to another report. So yeah, in here.
Yeah, so if you click on like the color buttons, yeah, for example, this one, yeah, don't mind there is that icon being on top of the on top of the thingy. That icon over there is just a Mac issue that we haven't resolved. It's a Mac Chrome issue which shows an icon on top of this panel. So the colors over here, they because originally we call this piece of work Word Light Editing. So this is actually very similar to Microsoft Word or actually Outlook. So the colors, they are actually pretty much similar to what we have from Outlook. If you don't like these colors, then you can obviously choose more colors to pick some additional ones that you want. So these are all just standard colors that we defined. There is nothing we can change at this moment in time. Yeah, so So that's these colors, and obviously the colors on the next button related to the next button. So if you click on the background button, yeah, so the background button, yeah, so this one it has all the same colors, and at the right bottom you've got the transparent color as well. So this one is to set the color transparent. Yeah, so if you want transparent background, if you previously already have colors, you can clear that by hitting this button. Yeah, so these colors they are there without being able to edit them, if that makes sense. So that's it for colors, unless I'm not answering the correct question.
Yeah, there's no one has said we're not answering the right question, so I believe they wouldn't be. So there's another question in there about I believe it's about using the color palette from the theme as well. So that's something that isn't implemented at the moment, but will be implemented at some point in the future. So I believe, just correct me if I'm wrong in there, but making sure that you've got, in addition to the colors within here, the actual theme colors on there. It's just not implemented right now. So it's, as Ming says, it's a little bit more Word-like at the moment, and Word doesn't have the concept of themes that we have in there. So it's from a standard palette, or going in, selecting or typing in a hex code within there. But what you can do to make your life a little bit simpler is, obviously, this, you'll start to find that this becomes your absolute friend, where you can just pick those elements and go and copy them from one element to another.
Yeah, and there is one thing I would like to point out related to this. The colors coming from the themes, they are sort of to be used for setting up chart colors, which 9 times out of 10 they are background colors on a bar chart, for example. So obviously it's not something going to be used for text colors. So you would never ever want to use those colors for text, because if you follow some good practice of developing a chart, for example, you want to make sure these colors, they are so more light colors, while they are sort of like being muted. So so those colors, they are pretty much the opposite of good practice for text colors. So so you don't actually want to use them for text colors. So yeah.
It's a really good point, Ming. I think just because we've made this available, I put my my hello admin. I created this report on this date and at this time in a nice spooky theme. Obviously Halloween's come and gone, but we've got a little spooky theme in there if you want to, but less can be a little bit more. So keeping things slightly more businesslike and making them easier to read, and maybe not having typing cats. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Really, I think would be a theme there. Ming, would you not agree?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, just checking. I think that's. Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah. So I thought there was a question there, but just people loving the paste buffer. You will find, genuinely, as I've been playing with this, I've been using these buttons more and more and more as I go through. It is so easy just to grab something, make a change to it, select it, and then from that paste window, just being able to go and consistently apply those things over. And it's been surprising how many reports I've looked at that have been created in the past where that's not been consistent, and it's been super quick now just to go over the top of it and just go, okay, bang, 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 I'll create those elements in the way that the way that they should be. Okay, I think that's all the questions that have been asked for now. Ming, thank you so much for giving up your time today. It was really great to get some of your insights. Always great to have you on hand and have the person who's put the work together available. If you guys have got any concerns at all, this is actually in the October release. So if you upgrade to October, you'll get all of this functionality in the reports, the card chart types, and in the messaging. And really, it's time to go and have a play and enjoy. And hopefully, it starts to inspire you a little bit to create some really cool looking reports. And if you create some reports that look awesome, then if you can share them back with us, we're always interested in content. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank you, Dina, for setting up the webinar. If there's any other webinars as well that you would like us to run, any topics that you'd like us to run over, then again, just contact us. We try and do a regular monthly webinar now to keep some content up and around. The November release is coming out soon. There's a couple of changes in there that are worthwhile looking at. So variables and restrictions have been integrated onto roles to make life in terms of controlling and locking down the dashboard a little bit easier. So yeah, I will leave you all to it, and thank you very much. We shall end the webinar there.